The Aaron Hernandez trial, if you remember Aaron Hernandez, former tight end for the New England Patriots. Guy was a beast on the field, and he is being tried for murder right now for being a beast off the field as well. There have been all kinds of testimonies this past week from everybody from Robert Kraft, the Patriots owner, to Aaron Hernandez's girlfriend at the time, or fiance at the time, whatever her relationship was. The female, he was his significant other female at the time, as well as other people. The prosecution will be done tomorrow. The prosecution will rest tomorrow. And then the defense will be resting on Monday. And they are only calling one witness to the stand. The defense is only calling one witness. I'm not quite sure who that is. I know it's not Aaron Hernandez. He will not be taking the stand to defend himself. Always a little shady, in my opinion, whenever someone being tried for a crime won't get up in court and defend themselves. Always a little suspect, but that's just me. You never know. That's how the system works. But anyway, like I said, the defense will rest after Monday, and the hearing, will go to jury sometime in this following week. So possibly by the end of next week or sometime the following week, we could have a decision on the Aaron Hernandez trial. And from what I've all seen and heard so far, it's definitely not looking good for him. I think all signs point to he will be found guilty and be getting locked up for quite a while. But we'll have to wait and see to know for sure. If OJ can get away with it, who knows? Anything's possible, I guess. But all right, and in final NFL news or reference, again, it's not very positive stuff, but it is former Washington Redskins safety Sean Taylor's birthday today. He would have been 32 years old. He was murdered some years ago, and just today, as a matter of fact, on his birthday, the fourth guy, I should say, has been convicted in connection to his murder. And there is one more person left, apparently, that was involved that has yet to stand their trial. But that is coming up in the near future. But so very ironic that would happen on his birthday. But the main point of it being brought up is simply a remember Sean Taylor. He was an amazing football player and an amazing person, and today would have been his 32nd birthday had it not been for a senseless act of violence. So rest in peace, Sean Taylor. All right, well, we're at the midpoint of the show. Usually, when we get to this spot in the show, we enter a segment I like to call simply The Meat, which is then usually followed by several quickies. Now, because of the amount of sports going on, sports news to discuss, and my own indecisiveness, because I couldn't quite decide what to choose for the meat of the show, I'm going to try and combine the quickies and the meat. So we're going to put more meat into the quickies. We're going to have a whole bunch of quickies, but there's going to be more meat in them. Does that make sense? I don't know. Yeah. Whatever. You get the point, right? Combining meat and quickies. So meatier quickies, quicker meat. There you go. All right, college basketball. It has gotten down to the Final Four here in the March Madness NCAA tournament. And 3 of the 4 number 1 seeds made it all the way to the Final Four. That being Kentucky, who's undefeated currently at 38-0. They will be facing Wisconsin, the number 1 seed out of the West, who beat a really, really good Arizona team in the Elite Eight, and a pretty good North Carolina team in the Sweet 16 as well. Wisconsin's had a great season. They got a great team. They're no joke. They will be a huge challenge for undefeated Kentucky. If Kentucky is to remain undefeated and have a perfect season, they're definitely going to have to earn it here in these last 2 games, should they advance to the championship and get past Wisconsin. And then on the other side of the bracket, you've got number 1 seed Duke. Congratulations, brother. Going up against the 7 seed, the lone not top seed in the Final Four, the 7 seed Michigan State. Now, they made it all the way to the Final Four as a 7 seed out of their Eastern bracket. Eastern region, I should say, excuse me. And now, to me, that matchup is, both of these matchups are great matchups. I mean, Michigan State, Duke, Wisconsin, Kentucky. 4 great programs, great colleges, big schools. You gotta love it. The coaches involved in this are fantastic. And in this, that's one of the matchups I'm really intrigued with, or aspects of the Michigan State-Duke game that I'm intrigued with, is you've got Tom Izzo, coach for Michigan State, going up against Mike Krzyzewski, coach in Duke, which that's just a dream awesome head-to-head coaching matchup. Anytime you can get that in college basketball, whether it's regular season, March Madness, anytime you can get 2 guys of that level, both Hall of Fame worthy, dominant in their eras, worthy of greatest all-time list coaches going head-to-head in a Final Four is just, man, that's awesome. So, but Duke, obviously, the favorite in that one, being a 1 seed playing a 7 seed. But do not discount Michigan State's chance to win this game. Michigan State has just as good of a chance to win this game as anybody that Duke's come up against so far this year. In fact, Michigan State will probably give Duke the toughest game they've had yet in the tournament. San Diego State wasn't as much of a challenge as some people thought. Utah actually gave them a fairly decent run for their money. But then the Zags in the Elite Eight, they weren't quite as tough either. So, I mean, Utah, I think that was the only, they won that one by like 4 points. I believe 4 or 5 points is what they beat Utah by. But that was their biggest and debatably only even challenge, if you can even call that game a challenge, that Duke's had so far in the tournament. Whereas Michigan State upset Virginia, they upset Oklahoma, they upset Louisville. I mean, they've been beating really good teams to get to this point. So that's where, if and they got good guard play and great defense. Michigan State, pretty much all their teams always have great guard play and great defense anytime Izzo team. That's how they're built. So Michigan has a great chance to win this game. Personally, and I can't believe I'm saying this, though, I am rooting for Duke. God, I can't believe I just said that. I'm not a Duke fan by any means, but I'm cheering for Duke for the sole reason that I think a Duke-Wisconsin championship game or a Duke-Kentucky championship game would be a better, more competitive, more entertaining championship game than if Michigan State were to face either Kentucky or, especially, heaven forbid, Wisconsin. Could you imagine if Big 12 teams, Wisconsin and Michigan State, faced off against each other in the championship game? Wow, boy, you'd have a lot of bored, upset, unhappy people out east and out west and down south. 3/4 of the country would be bored or upset by that, but it would be a great game. I mean, those two would go at it. I think Kentucky Michigan State's really the only one that might not be a great game. Kentucky might be able to just blow them out of the building. They're so big and fast and athletic and long and skilled and well-oiled machine. They play selflessly. Kentucky's going to be real tough to beat, but Wisconsin has a chance to do it. Frank the Tank Kaminsky is one of the best big men college basketball players there is right now. Sam Decker can play his heart out, can shoot the lights out. They got a lot of great guys on that Wisconsin team, and they might have the size to really give Kentucky some difficulty. Duke would also have the size with Jahlil Okafor, and that's the other reason I'm cheering for Duke in their matchup against Michigan State. Is just I kind of want to see Kentucky versus Duke, just because they got on paper the two fanciest, most exciting teams. They got the top 2 picks in the upcoming draft. Both big men would be going head to head a lot in Jahlil Okafor and what's his face Towns for Kentucky. But regardless, it is a great Final Four setup. And the first two games start on Saturday. Let's see here. The Michigan State-Duke game is at 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon, and the Kentucky-Wisconsin game will be at 8 o'clock approximately Saturday night. And then the championship game is Monday, this upcoming Monday, April 6th. So when I come back to you next week, we will be talking about who won the tournament, who the champion was, how that happened, and why. Should be a great watch. If you've watched any of it so far, you can't miss these last three games. Yep. Quick math there. And even if you haven't been watching up to this point, these are as good and stable and solid and well put together and well coached of programs as you get in college sports. So even if you haven't tuned in yet, now would be the time to tune in. It will be worth it. These will be 3 great games to end the college basketball season, regardless of who wins them. All right, and one tiny bit of additional NCAA news. Well, two actually. In the women's Final Four, it is all 4 of the number 1 seeds: UConn, Maryland, South Carolina, and I'm forgetting the other one that plays South Carolina. But anyway, it's UConn's tournament. The fact that they almost need to move the UConn women's college basketball team into the WNBA. It's gotten so out of hand. But anyway, so there's that. And then also Chris Mullin, former Golden State Warrior in the NBA. Phenomenal shooter, great player, 5-time All-Star. Awesome basketball player. He played his college basketball at St. John's University in New York, where he was a mega stud there before going pro, and they fired their coach here when they were eliminated from the tournament in the first round, and they have just announced that Chris Mullin is going to be their new head coach. I do not believe that he has much head coaching experience at all. If he does, it was a small stint and not all that successful, and I'm not sure where it was at. Brett, maybe you can look that up for me, see what Chris Mullin's previous coaching gigs have been. But anyway, he's going to be the SJU basketball coach from now on, and it's a decent hire for him. It's going to be hard to get any of the top in-state recruits to want to go to St. John's University as opposed to Syracuse or something like that if they're going to stay. Let's face it, if they're any good, they're going to go to Kentucky, or they're going to go to Duke, or they're going to go to North Carolina, or someplace like that. They're not going to go to Georgetown, or they're not going to go to Syracuse. But that's where St. John's could make a little noise, because the other New York colleges aren't all that special, aren't all that enticing and appealing for basketball players at the moment as well. So, they got a shot. There's an opening a little bit. And he might be able to recruit well. And when it comes to being a college coach, that's by far the most important thing, in my opinion, if you're D1 and trying to compete, is you got to be able to recruit the talent. If you can't recruit the talent, you can be the Yoda of coaches when it comes to teaching the game. It ain't going to matter. You still ain't going to get the wins. You ain't going to get the championships. You need the talent, so you got to be able to recruit. I think Mullin can recruit at least better for St. John's University than what they've been used to for many years now. And also Rick Barnes, who was recently fired as the head coach of the Texas basketball team once they lost out of the tournament, he just got hired to be the new head coach at Tennessee for their men's basketball team. And the one interesting stat on Rick Barnes, while he was the head coach of the Texas Longhorns basketball team, they made the NCAA tournament 16 out of 17 years. That's remarkable. Now, as a Minnesotan, stuff like this really upsets me. We've never been that spoiled. Not with a single sports team that we've ever had in the state have we ever been that spoiled, where we look at a guy and go, you got us to the playoffs 16 out of 17 years. Get out of here. Get lost. That ain't good enough. Like, what? So that's my thoughts and feelings on that as a Minnesotan. Just looking at those numbers going, bunch of jerks. But that's a big program for you that's spoiled. So anyway, but good luck to you, Rick Barnes in Tennessee. That used to be a really good basketball program for a while. Coach Ron Pearl fell off the map for a little, has been off the map for a little while. So maybe he can bring that back to some relevancy. But good luck, Rick Barnes. and also a real quick high school basketball